RSM are going to do for you today is we're going to just talk to you about how to navigate a virtual event. Business Horizons is coming up in about 2 weeks, so make sure that you guys have all the information in order to really be successful and put your best foot forward, and really just kind of some ways, some pointers from the firm on how to stand out. I also have some of my professionals and some of our former interns who have joined us today. And what they're going to do is talk to you guys a little bit about how things have changed for them. You know, our internship, as most internships, if any of you completed one, went from in-person to virtual in a matter of weeks. So really just kind of talking through some of our concerns, our struggles, and really how we were able to work through everything, and how we were still able to be successful and stay connected as a firm and as a community. So just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview about what we're going to be discussing today. Obviously, please feel free to stop me if you do have any questions. I do have, like I said, Hannah can be on there monitoring the chat box, so feel free to write any questions in there. We can ask those at the end, or also too, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the raise hand icon and we can go from there. All right. So just to kick things off, just really wanted to start from an event from start to finish, right? You're thinking about signing up for a virtual event, actually going through it, and then finally kind of how to follow up from there. So we're going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts, what to make sure that you're prepared for, and how to go from there. So number one, just that pre-event registration, really just making sure that you guys are getting registered. I know Brazen has the links that you guys still have to do, so make sure that you're getting all of that information out, doing your research ahead of the time, making sure that you are checking out the firms that are going to be there, checking out the companies that are going to be there. Get to know their mission statements, get to know who they are, what kind of products do they offer, get prepared to really be able to talk about the firm or the company and the services that they provide. This really helps you become one step closer to really determining if the opportunities that are going to be presented are going to be a good fit for you. Coming with a list of questions, making sure that you understand, maybe it's the job postings. What is it exactly that you're applying for? Is it an engineering role? Is it a marketing role? Obviously, in our case, is it an accounting role, right? Really making sure that you guys understand the opportunities that are coming your way. Also, don't be afraid to ask those questions. And now the purpose of this is really in this virtual environment. We understand you're all on mute. You all don't want to talk over each other. You don't necessarily want to interrupt people as they're talking, but we really just want to make sure that you guys are engaging with us. This is really your best opportunity to ask questions, right? And think about it. If you were at a Business Horizons in a live environment, you would still be going back and forth asking those questions. So when we think about like the Brazen platform, you'll have the opportunity not only to instant message questions, but there's also a video capability. So feel free to volunteer to go on camera, be able to have that face-to-face, more of like a virtual conversation, as opposed to just talking all through chat. That can be very hard, and sometimes it feels like you might be talking to a wall. Also, be prepared to introduce yourself, right? The typical questions you're going to hear. You know, obviously your name, what school, obviously Virginia Tech, your year, what your major is, where you're planning on, when you're planning on graduating. Maybe a fun fact if you want, that's obviously not necessary, but really just kind of making sure that you're open and introducing yourself to the professionals that you're going to be speaking to. And if you're nervous, that's totally fine. It's acceptable. We are all nervous. This is new for every single one of us. So I know you guys have had a little bit of exposure when it comes to your classes in general. Obviously with last semester being taken at the end offline, any of you who, like I said, maybe did an internship this summer, you probably had some mostly virtual interactions. So we all understand that this is going to be new for us. There's going to be a couple of bumps in the road, but we will get through it together. So feel free to work through those nerves. I always like to say, when you're nervous, try and channel it towards positive energy. It comes off across definitely when you're energized, so make sure that you can show that with the companies that you're talking to. So the etiquette when you are going to be doing a career fair online, really making sure that your camera or your video is on. I've already scrolled through the list. I see a lot of you have your cameras on. Great to see your smiling faces. It's really helpful for us as companies to see your faces. It makes us feel like we are not just talking to a blank screen. Like I feel like I'm doing a little bit right now because there is no interaction. But it's very helpful to know that there is a face out there. So like I said, for the Brazen Career Fair, if the company doesn't volunteer to go on video, ask if they'd be interested, right? It gives you an opportunity to see their faces, see their personalities, their mannerisms come across. I'm sure you've already started to notice in just the, 10 minutes I've been talking, I talk with my hands a lot. So it's really great as I try and sit down and calm that down a little bit, but it's really great to kind of get a feel for how a person operates and how they work. And we really truly encourage as much face-to-face interaction as possible. Obviously, it's hard not being able to actually go into an office and meet with a professional or shake somebody's hand at a career fair, but this counts, right? Being able to see somebody's reactions to what you're saying, being able to read facial expressions, facial cues, posture cues, anything like that that you think about in a casual setting is going to be very important as well. Make sure that you find a quiet space with little to no interruptions. That's huge, especially if you're going to be on video. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you feel that you know your space, everything around you. You want to be mindful of your background, right? You don't want to necessarily be talking to somebody who has a lot of things going on. It's funny, actually, before we logged on, I asked Hannah, I don't know if you can tell, there's a ceiling fan behind me, but I straight up asked her if it was confusing or if it was distracting having that spinning right above my head like a wonderful little whirly hat. So wanted to ask and make sure that that didn't take away from everything. So I was able to turn it off because I want to make sure that you guys are focused and concentrated on what we're talking about and concentrated on me as your presenter. So really pay attention to that. If you are sitting in your room, maybe your roommates are loud and noisy and you want to make sure that you have your quiet space, make sure your background is going to be tidy, whether it's your wall, if your bed's in the background, make sure it's made, little things like that go a long way. If it is a common area, if that's the best place for you, make sure that the people that you're living with or anybody who's around you understands what you're about to do so that you don't have people necessarily walking around behind you. It's very helpful to make sure that those people are aware. I will say, for example, I'm actually with my family right now. I'm down in North Carolina, so presenting to you not only remotely, but not from the greater Washington area where I live. And I sent everybody to the beach because I had a meeting that I needed to take. And so I said, hey guys, it's a beautiful day, go to the beach. I have a meeting coming up and I want to make sure that I have a quiet space. I will say towards the end, if you hear two screaming toddlers, those are my nieces. Also, again, I mentioned this, most video platforms do have a chat function. So it's a great way to ask questions if you think you're going to interrupt somebody or talking over somebody, or even maybe ask a clarifying question that you can get a quick hit answer to. Situations like this, like I mentioned, I do have professionals who are going to talk to you towards the second half of this presentation. So they're looking at those chats that are coming in as well and can be helping answering any questions about RSM. So please feel free to use those as well. I know it can be very helpful if you're battling nerves or something like that too. Another thing, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes to troubleshoot any technology before. I know a lot of schools are using platforms like Brazen, right? So something that is very, very new. It's not necessarily a Zoom call or a WebEx meeting or Microsoft Teams or anything like that. So it's something that you're not necessarily using in a classroom setting. It is a very specific platform designed for career fairs or breakout rooms. So make sure that you understand what you need to do in order to sign up, in order to log in order to go in and check out the rooms. If there's any training videos that the university is sending out, they're typically about 15 minutes long. Take a quick look. It'll show you how to navigate your way through the career fair, right? How do you find the companies that you're interested in? How can you search for them if you can't see them on the homepage? How many companies can you be talking to at one time? How many queues can you be in at one time? Little frequently asked questions like that can typically get answered pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with this stuff before you log into the event, and then make sure you log in early so that you don't have any technology issues. I was actually on a career fair a couple of months ago. I did the same thing. I logged on about 10 minutes before, and I'm so thankful that I did because I couldn't find the RSM booth, which was obviously very important and where I needed to be because my screen Zoom was actually too large. So I had to decline my Zoom on my web browser just to make sure that I could actually find our booth because of the way it was set up. There were 4 rows. So you really want to make sure that you can find everything that you need that's there. Okay, the important ones, right? Dress dress code. So now this is something I throw in here all the time just because it's important no matter what. When it comes to a career fair, you know, the idea is that you are going to be wearing probably business casual or business professional. So just make sure to note that. Obviously, men, women, shirts with sleeves, very, very important. I know it's hot right now, but you want to kind of stay away from that sleeveless look. Sweats, probably okay if they're on the bottom, but not so much on the top. Don't wear any baseball hats, button-down polos. Always rocking that RSM polo here. Ties, jackets, not necessary unless you're being told otherwise by the university. We just really want to make sure that, you know, when we're looking at you from that chest up portion, that we are able to see that you are put together, that you're not sitting there necessarily in a t-shirt, that you're not sitting there kind of looking like you just rolled out of bed, anything like that, right? So make sure you put yourself together, run a brush or a comb through your hair so that way when you are presenting yourself, you're coming across as your best self. If you also, for any professional event that you might be attending, if you are unsure about the dress code and maybe you've received an invite from a company directly, maybe it's something you're signing up for through the Handshake platform, whatever it might be, just reach out, ask, whether it's asking career services, asking the company itself, feel free to ask them directly. They should be able to tell you how you should expect to dress. I know we run events all the time where we just say casual is fine, right? And in that case, we're expecting just like t-shirts, no big deal. However, we obviously want to make sure that you guys are putting your best foot forward, whatever those events might be for you. All right, so now you went to the career fair, you went to Business Horizons, you spent your 4 hours or your hour here, your hour there, talking to all the companies that you're interested in. So now what do I do? So it's very different, right? I can't hand you a business card when you hand me a resume. That's one of the big pieces that we're hearing a lot of feedback from students that we're talking to as we are talking to universities that students are most concerned about. So really make sure you get that contact information from the recruiter or the person that you're speaking with. So for example, I mentioned, you know, the Brazen platform allows you to type in questions. So at the end, maybe you ask the person you spoke to before they end your chat, because the employers control that chat function, to send you, their email address. That way you can follow up directly. You don't have to necessarily do the runaround in order to get that contact information. Like I said, I do have our contact information in this slide deck, so feel free to take a screenshot of it when we get to that portion, or also, like I said, Hannah will have access to this and we'll have a recording. So no problem there. You definitely want to make sure that you are connect with them, follow up, remind them of your conversation, right? These are the things that you're hearing, and even if we were doing an in-person career fair, things that you would hear. These are just important in terms of candidate follow-up, right? Making sure that you're staying connected with everybody. Feel free to reach out to them, connect with them on LinkedIn. That's always a great way to stay connected. I get a lot of invitations usually after a Business Horizons, right? After giving my card though. But you can set up that time to connect with recruiters or professionals one-on-one. That's a great way for not only us to remember you, but also for you to get more specific questions answered. So these platforms, I think about the platform we're using, like I said, again, for tech, and really what it does is all of the conversations are timed. So you can't necessarily stand and talk to every single person there. You really only get to connect with one person. So reach back out, say, hey, you know, it was so great talking to you. I enjoyed learning about the company, in our case, in the firm. I'd really like to learn about XYZ. Is there anyone you can put me in contact with that can help discuss this position with me or discuss these opportunities? Or maybe it's the actual work itself. So feel free to ask those questions. In a virtual setting, it's a lot harder to, like I said, be able to, you know, grab somebody 2 steps away and say, oh yes, I need you to come and meet this person at my company. They're going to be able to talk to everything about what you're looking for. So we really want to make sure that you guys are getting the information that you need, and every company is prepared to really put students in touch with their professionals. Also, like I mentioned before, the following up again also allows you to ask any questions you might have missed. So maybe, let's say RSM, you come and visit us, you talk with us, but we're the first company that you talk to. Maybe after your day at Business Horizons, after you've talked to 3 or 4 more companies, you started asking with just one particular question, and that's something that really meant something to you, and you were getting these answers, but you forgot to ask RSM. send us a note. Say, hey, great to know you, but I was wondering if you could answer this question for me as well. This is something that I was starting to get more information. Maybe I think about like the situation itself, right? Virtual life. How are we coping? How are you dealing with everything that's going on right now? So make sure that you try and keep in contact and ask those questions as well, because you want to make sure that you understand everybody's situation. All right, so now this is always the fun one. How do you make yourself stand out in a virtual environment? It's really hard, right? Like you think about, like I said, you hand me your resume, I hand you my business card, we're able to talk through different things very quickly if we're standing at the career fair itself. We can't do that this time. So the number one way in my mind, and like I said, I'll get some of my professionals on the line here too to kind of talk through their experiences. Ask questions. When you're on and obviously this one might be a little harder because there are so many of us, but when you are on maybe an info session with a company and maybe there's only 10 to 15 of you, unmute yourself. Say, hi, my name is Lindsay, and I would really like to talk to you more about blah, 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 right? Ask those questions. Those people really stand out to us because as recruiters and as employees, we are kind of sitting here like, please somebody ask a question. Please somebody ask a question. So I really hope at the end of this, somebody asks the question, wink, wink. Your resume. So making sure that your resume is still clear, it's concise, includes your GPA, certifications, licenses, right? Like these are the things that you're taught in any type of workshop or career services is talking you through this as well. Graduation date, CPA eligibility, if you are pursuing an accounting degree, specifically like an audit and tax line, having that information on there is very helpful for the companies that you're going to be talking to. So little things like that do stand out on a resume. And I know you'll hear that over and over again, but that's something, it really doesn't matter live, online, having that resume really being clear, polished, it looks great for you. LinkedIn. So again, I mentioned that piece where I've had many students reach out after Business Horizons, connect with us on LinkedIn. Being able to see the profiles and having, a picture, it calls back, oh my gosh, that's right. I totally remember talking to John at this event, right? So make sure that you have that. If you haven't already built a profile, obviously build it, make sure you include a picture. And then also you can follow up with an actual personalized message. LinkedIn generates their, hi, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Make it personal. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed getting to know you at Business Horizons. Or maybe you are able to call back something that you guys were able to talk about during the career fair. So really be able to use that as another way to follow up without having to send an email if that's not what you want to do. I would also say in LinkedIn, I know the features change again on a regular basis. I feel like it looks more and more like Facebook every day, which is funny. But in your profile, there is a little piece where you can put about me. Feel free to use that as if it were like an objective statement on your resume, right? Talk about maybe what location you're interested in going to. Maybe you're talking about the type of internship you're looking for, what season, right? Like, so summer 2021, 2022, fall, winter, whatever it might be. Really use that as an opportunity to shine so that once you do connect with these companies again, they can click on that and it's like they have their resume in front of you all over again, right? So make sure that you use that as a tool too. Virtual, it's really nice to have these new things. And I know I've said it about 4 times now, so now I wrote it 3 times, but follow up. It's so important. I know it feels like a lot when you have to send all these emails out to the people that you connected with, but it will also help you connect with other people at these companies. So please, please, please make sure that you're reaching out. I feel like you send emails day in, day out, right? And especially after a career fair, but it is truly the best way for us to connect with you and then to put you in touch with our other professionals to make sure that we are giving you the experience and the knowledge that you need in order to help you make your decisions as you continue through the recruiting process. So those are the main things from a virtual perspective, I would say, will help you stand out amongst the others. I cannot stress this enough. Business Horizons, we have this video capability, use it. We have a platform that we're going to be able to use that allows us to do this. Not all schools even have that. So that right there is a huge win, right? Because we can say we remember seeing you and talking to you. So just be prepared for that piece. So in a nutshell, these are ways that, after talking with our professionals, talking with markets, really starting to talk to other schools and understand what's on your mind, that we found are going to be helpful to help you prepare for that virtual recruiting environment. Please feel free to also take these things not only from Business Horizons, but also into any, like I said, networking or information sessions that you might be having with professionals as well, to make sure that you are getting to know people and still putting your best foot forward. Now, from that, what I would like to do is give you an opportunity to hear from some of our professionals. So I have a couple of our RSM folks on the line who are going to be able to talk to you guys a little bit more about their experiences with the virtual environment. So really just talking about how we were able to change and adapt. Like I said, what were things that made us nervous? How did we overcome it? How are we looking to talk to candidates virtually, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and I am going to pull up this, which is some questions. I am going to get out. I know this is crazy. I'm going to get out of the actual slide, but this way I can actually be able to see your guys' faces as we're talking. But what I really just wanted to start with is a few of, like I said, our professionals here. Well, actually, no, I'm going to start with our interns. So I think we have Lauren, and I believe Sammy is on as well. But I really just wanted to kind of put you guys on the spot. I know you guys just completed a virtual internship. So I wanted to see if you guys could talk a little bit about some of the things that made you nervous when you were like, oh my gosh, RSM just changed their internship from in-person to virtual. What am I going to do? This is going to be the worst experience ever. And really how your expectations change. So Lauren, Sammy, can I go ahead and throw that out there to you guys?
Yeah. Hey everybody, my name is Sammy. I'm a senior at Virginia Tech. This past month, I was interning at RSM in their security and privacy sector. Before coming in and realizing it was virtual, one of the things that was nerve-wracking to me, I would say, is like reaching out for help, but it was the opposite. Employees from all lines of business at RSM would reach out to me and make sure I felt comfortable and had everything I needed at the firm. I really felt included, a big sense of family at the firm and in the office.
Awesome. Thanks, Sammy. Lauren, how about you? What was your experience?
Hi guys, my name is Lauren and I interned in the Richmond office in audit. And the thing that made me most nervous when I found out that it was switched on to virtual was that I was actually interested in learning more about audit versus tax and maybe switching. So I was really nervous because not being able to see anybody face to face, I was going to have to like make that decision or make that call kind of blind and not know anything about it. So my expectations changed with that for sure, just with getting Lindsay's help and all of the help of the people on both the audit team and the tax team in the Richmond office to be able to get questions answered and ask a bunch of questions that weren't even really pertinent to what we were doing at the internship. That was just more for like my personal career. So that was really nice in the virtual environment to still be able to do that.
That's awesome. Thank you. I know we worked through that. I feel like we were always emailing each other, making sure to keep you connected with our staff. And it's very hard when you're not getting the actual hands-on experience, right? But really still being able to ask the questions and get to shadow those professionals and see what they're doing in their day-to-day. Those are some things that we've been able to do in order to adapt our culture. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to kick it over to a couple of our professionals. I have Cam and Jack on the line. Again, we have it more from like an audit perspective as well as from a consulting perspective to talk a little bit more about from a client experience. How were they able to change their deliverables to their clients and really just adapt that way? So Cam, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Maybe. I see you, but I think you're muted.
There we go.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me? Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm Cam Bowen. I've been with RSM for 3 years now. I graduated from Virginia Tech, my undergrad in 2016, master's 2017, and I'm out of the Charlotte, North Carolina office. And so from an audit perspective, we started working remotely during the busiest time of busy season. And so obviously deadlines were the most nerve-wracking thing because not only are we adjusting at RSM, but you have to imagine our clients are adjusting where, schools are being shut down, so they're having to homeschool their kids. And so even if we're still on top of what we're doing, the client isn't necessarily on top of it. So then you kind of have to, have a lot more phone calls, a lot more webcam calls, because it used to be simple where I'd be on site and if I needed something, I would just go to the controller or CFO. And if they didn't know what I needed, I could just walk them through it and kind of point it out and tell them, here's what I need. But over the phone, I can't see what they're doing. So it just kind of takes a little bit more time, and you always have to be on the same page. So what I found was helpful was I would send a list of everything first thing in the morning that was outstanding. And then the controller would look at it, and then we would set up a phone call, and we would go through every list, and she would tell me when it's going to be provided and everything like that.
Which is just so crazy that you were still able to do it that way. I don't know. I think about when I think about what you guys do from an audit perspective, and just having to totally revamp everything and rely on somebody else to be on site for you. Like, auditors are, that just doesn't mesh with your personalities and your work. So that's crazy, but that's so awesome that you guys were able to do that. I can imagine the amount of man hours that went into that, though, by having that list of deliverables. Jack, what about from a consulting perspective?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lindsay. So, hey, everybody, my name's Jack. I graduated from Tech in 2019, and I'm part of our management consulting practice out of our Washington area office. So for consulting, in the 2 years that I've been with the firm, they've sent me to Atlanta, Tampa, Baton Rouge, Chicago, Iowa, a couple other places here and there. So I've been all over the place. So obviously being quarantined was a pretty big change of pace for the lifestyle. And what you might expect with that is that it would also be pretty big impact on what we're doing day to day and how we do our job. But ironically enough, I actually didn't find very much of a difference. So kind of the way that it worked for us is that when we're traveling to the client site to be with them and do our work on site, we're living out of our suitcase, and we have our carry-on bag that has our laptop and an extra monitor, and that's what we're working with. So when we got quarantined at home and that's what we had, we were already pretty used to doing that, whether that was from, it didn't really matter where we were used to being remote, even though remote happened to be in our houses this time. So for us, it didn't change as much as I thought it might have. But I definitely have seen an increase, just like Cam was saying. It's being intentional about your communications. So just like he was saying, that's joining emails with phone calls, with Microsoft Teams chats and other communications methods, text sometimes to the team, and just being able to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, because you're not walking up to someone's desk and get to tap them on the shoulder and say, oh, by the way, something small that might have slipped my mind otherwise. So just that intentionality has been important, and definitely having a good pair of headphones. My phone bill's about 6-7 pages of phone calls now at this point every month. But it's good stuff, and definitely we've adjusted much more effectively than I maybe thought we would have at the onset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that most people are scared of, right? Is the fact that, like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden everything we used to do live and in person has to be virtual. And as much as it's daunting more than anything, but once we actually start, it makes it a little bit easier. So thank you so much for that, Jack. So what I'm also going to do for you guys, for Jack and Cam, I want you guys to talk a little bit about, and now in your opinions, how somebody can make themselves stand out, right? I know you guys have helped me a couple of times with recruiting events like this. We've all chatted a lot about different things just to kind of get things off the ground. You're clearly working in a virtual environment. So when you're thinking about meeting students or meeting candidates, or I know we've done coffee chats, or you've probably connected with your interns while they were here, what did you think really made people stand out in your opinion? What were the things that they were doing?
Do you want me to go first? Or
Cam, all you if you want to start.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll start. So I haven't spoken too much via the webcam with candidates, but I will say when I was at Virginia Tech, we had, you have to do the public speaking through the business program, and I actually was able to do it through online, which I never thought would be useful, but here we are with COVID. So I think the biggest thing from that is body language is still so important. Yep. And so, you're not basically looking at someone's face, you're looking at the little, circle where your camera is, and that's considered you know, keeping eye contact. And if you're looking around a lot, it's very blown up. So it makes it look like you're frazzled or you're uninterested. So I think that's one thing that's very important. Let's see, a tip, something that I did going through the interview process is if it's a one-on-one, just type their name in LinkedIn or on the internet and kind of see what you can find about them. Because, you know, if you do run out of things to talk about and there's an awkward, 3-second pause, you can kind of pull that out of your back pocket and say, oh, like, I saw you started out here and now you're at RSM. Like, what was that process like? Or what did you do through your career doing this? I think that also helps. And it shows that you care because you put in the extra time.
Yeah. How cool is it, guys, that being virtual, you could potentially have that, set up a dual monitor and pull up that stuff while you're talking to somebody at a career fair, right? Like, you don't have to just totally walk in blind. You can actually be able to be like, oh, I'm talking to Jack Holland. I'm going to check him out real quick on LinkedIn and see what's going on. So something that is kind of like a cheat sheet that you didn't have before, right? So go ahead, Jack. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was gonna take just kind of that concept is use everything virtual to your advantage. So just like Lindsay said, pull up a second screen and have notes on there. You can do a better job, I think, of taking notes in a virtual environment. It's a little bit easier than when you're trying to carry your padfolio and hand out resumes and you don't know what to do with your hands. So do what you can to take notes or do research or have your questions right there in front of you. Because if you glance over to the screen, they're going to expect that you're clearly prepared, and it might just be a little bit more natural than trying to open up your folder or something like that in the actual business fair. Another thing for me, I think, is don't forget that at the end of the day, everyone's people. This is new for a lot of us. The people that you're going to be speaking with might not have done any recruiting virtually, so they might be just as new to it as well. So if they're stumbling, if you're stumbling, don't worry about it as much as you think it might be. As it might not be as impactful as you think it could be. And don't forget to just talk with them, just engage with them. I think certainly in my experience with the virtual meetings for our clients, there's a kind of an expectation that once the video's on and once the clock hits, you're going immediately into work. And that's great. That's helped us be pretty productive, but you lose some of that kind of interpersonal aspects the first couple of minutes of the meeting when you're just kind of chatting with everybody, asking how their day was, what did you do over the weekend? That kind of stuff. So that can be a really big differentiator, I think, when you're going through recruiting, especially when it's virtual, to kind of have that personable side. And obviously that's something that's an important aspect of recruiting overall, is just how well you mesh with the overall kind of feel of the firm or school or whatever else it might be that you're recruiting for. So those would be kind of my quick ones. And then the third one for me is take advantage of the fact that you can only see, this much. I play with it's like a little magnet, and it helps me keep my hands busy. And that way you wouldn't be able to tell that I'm kind of fidgety or anything like that. So take advantage of that for what it's worth. But that's just kind of the three that I would think of for sure.
That's awesome. Maybe that's what I need to stop talking with my hands in presentations, like a fidget cube or something, something to keep my mind elsewhere. But thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. I think obviously they both bring up such great points. Using a resume on a second screen so that you can be talking to yourself and not constantly, right? Like doing this up and down. But really just, I would say, get used to those icebreakers. I know everybody always talks about them and we're all going to be doing them. So maybe not so much in the career fair itself, but as you are signing up for networking events, info sessions, employer office hours, anything like that, we're going to be asking a lot of get to know you questions. And some of them are going to be pretty simple and some of them are going to be kind of like, what was the one I had the other day? I made people give me what their favorite food was. So that was like a very interesting one that nobody was expecting. And I think they were kind of concerned about it, but it was a lot of fun because we all had a good time just kind of talking about it. It was right around lunch, so I was hungry. So I guess really my last piece before I want to open this up to questions is, Lauren, Sammy, I'm going to pick on you guys again, but as people who have now gone through the virtual classrooms, then gone through that virtual internship, and now are getting ready to do it again, what is your advice for how to just stay focused, how to get through it, and what would you tell people to do in order to prepare themselves moving forward?
I can go first if you want me to, Sammy.
You got it.
All right. I would say advice, something that I still haven't done all the way yet, is in a class or in the recruiting, if you're not like dialed in on your phone or anything, try to at least like turn it over, or like put it somewhere, because especially in classes, it's like really easy to just like really tune out. So just to stay focused, that would be like my biggest advice, just like to minimize the distractions, like keep your desk clean or anything like that. But also advice just in like the recruiting instance. Like I know with the internship, it was really nerve wracking at the beginning to think about getting on a call with all these people that I didn't know who all knew each other, all talking already. But kind of to echo what Jack said, like everyone's doing it for the first time. Like it's definitely not that big of a deal to have like candid conversation, or to just like ask a silly question, or even if there's a distraction or a person that comes in behind you. Like everyone that I encountered through the internship and all of that was very understanding of anything like that. So kind of the nerves of living with a bunch of people or anything can be a lot higher being in your college houses right now, because I know it is for me at times. But to try to like have peace of mind about that as much as you can, then you'll be able to like have more natural conversation and just like perform better in an interview and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I want to echo exactly what Lauren said. Setting time aside and like having a routine on the like having a daily routine and sticking to that daily routine definitely did help me through classes, and that helped me through the internship as well. Also, just having a space to do work, like having a desk area, definitely did help. Um, Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
So really just not only that aspect, but like how to prepare, right? Like how to make sure that you're ready to go.
Oh yeah, before I before I even interviewed with RSM, I did a lot of research to kind of get prepared and have a talking point with my with the partner I interviewed with. It definitely helped the conversation flow better. With most interviews, they're not supposed to be an interview; they're supposed to be a conversation, and they'll flow much easier that way. And I feel like the best way to do that is through research prior to going in.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. As people who have, like I said, just recently gone through it and had to make this transition, I figured who better to hear from, right? At making sure that all of you know. Obviously, for a recruiting perspective, I can definitely talk to all of you and tell you what we've gone through and the differences we've made. But I travel a lot too, so for me, working from home is not totally uncommon to work remotely. Which is why I wanted to make sure you got to hear from not only some of your peers who, like I said, have gone through it with you, but also some of our professionals who have seen it from a different side.